can tell you one thing, Tempo Storm is never late to dinner, as they have come hungry in this series to make up for their defeat against Team Freedom and Dreadnought. Nobody's ever late here at the HGC.
Never.
Ever.
Not even North America.
Not even North America.
No.
I mean, we started late today, but we're making up for lost time, I guess. These teams come out, they're like, what if we just 3-0'd?
It's actually a little surprising. I was just talking with the observer in the back how it feels it's a little bit backwards. You know, Europe's typically the region that you'll get that level of dominance, and in North America, we get that kind of competitive back and forthness. But somehow here today, we've been clean, crisp, and, you know, succinct here with our decision making, and it's very shown. I don't know. That's the second time I've used that word inappropriately. I don't know why.
You know what?
It's just bothered me.
The one thing about Europe, though, is like, even if they don't go 5 games, they make sure they have the longest games in the history of Heroes of the Storm. We don't necessarily do that as much in North America. We're going to find out whether this next Battleground will be one of the longer Battlegrounds we have. It's going to be Volskaya. LFM opting to finally take control. They're going to take us with the map pick this time, forcing Tempo Storm into that first pick department. You know they love that Deckard Dren. We'll see if Deckard does get let through, because this is a battleground where sustain could be the name of the game in a lot of these fights. Yeah,
and it has actually been really interesting. Even though the dominance has been here, I feel like Tempo Storm, I have been surprised with some of the Lornado options from June over the last couple of games. Just, I mean, they haven't been poor by any means, but normally he looks for a major scroll ceiling setup with the Lornado kind of in between, but a lot of them have been the Lornado on top of the scroll ceiling, look for maybe isolating the front line, kill, and kind of lock in the back line. It's just been a difference in his level of play here today, and I wonder if it's going to come to light if we get him on Deckard again.
Yeah, it's always interesting, especially with that level 7 talent. It's a matter of, can I play around this? Do I use my cube for the different cooldowns and things like that? And it's definitely been a different approach. June does things differently most of the time. Seems to be the right thing.
Yeah, it seems to work out. You know, Tempo Storm, for as long as they've been, if not #1, sitting in #2, and June's name being in the support area of that roster, I feel like it's pretty hard to question.
It's weird to think about that, because if you look back 2 years ago, it was like, oh, who's this June guy?
Yeah.
And then now all of a sudden, everybody knows who June is. And he's always been at the top.
Knows nothing other than victory.
I think it's time, you know what, again, after watching EU, I think it's time to reward June with an Ana game.
I agree with you. You're up 2 games over LFM. You've gone and seen the impact the Ana can have out of Europe. Maybe this is the moment.
Tempo Storm, I like this focus. Is they're willingly letting through Diablo in a lot of circumstances, but they're keeping the Muradin away from Fury. And for Tempo Storm, they're going to play around some different strategies, whether it's a Maiev or the potential first pick Deckard, if that's let through. And if Deckard's not let through, then they have a whole plethora of things they can go into. And it seems like, okay, well, if we're getting this first pick and we give you the next 2 picks, then we could potentially give up Muradin. For LFM, I think they got the same line of thought that we have, is there's no way you can continue to give up that Deckard.
And one thing, too, that I really like with this Warrior choke that we get from Tempo Storm, I think they're one of the few teams that can do that. And that's not only because of, I think, some of the impact that Fury can have on some of these heroes, that is part of the reason we see this decision making, but it's the flexibility and mainly the Johanna capabilities, I think, of Cattle. I don't think we have very many Johannas that seem to be the level of proactiveness and kind of impact that he has. More often than not, you know, we don't see those level of synergy with things like the Condemn out last game into the scroll ceiling. Like, it's every single time a Condemn comes out, something else follows up, and I think that enables this Warrior choke and kind of manipulation of the hero pool a little bit more for Tempo than most teams.
And it also limits that if you want to go into Garrosh, I agree with you. The only other person it seems like we have even willing to go into Johanna at this point is Ishbu, who at one point didn't really pick much else. But if you do go Garrosh down the road, and there is some amount of control, and taking Deckard away does give you some control away from the teams that can, I guess, play around with Deckard on the front line. Phoenix comes to mind, maybe even a Thrall down the road, but with Genji already being picked up, that seems less likely. But Malthael, things like that we've seen Glaurung already have an impact on. It's just Garrosh not as appealing in a lot of circumstances, and there's going to be the Johanna, Sergeant Hammer.
It'll be really interesting to look at now that they have the Johanna in the front line that can deal with the Garrosh, because I think that's a great point that you brought up, right? And the fact that we get the white main selection rather than the Malfurion, that immediately to me was like, that's even less control to be afraid of. But then Johanna is the commitment for Tempo Storm. So then suddenly it goes like, well, is there any world where you'd be looking to commit to the Garrosh yourself because you know it works well with that Genji, but then Johanna's good at dealing with the Garrosh, and then Sergeant Hammer you should realistically never be able to get on top of even with those tools removed.
Post 16, Garrosh into the Sergeant Hammer. If you think you have a hard time getting in already, I mean, that's the main thing. A Sergeant Hammer came out at Midseason Brawl from Rich, and every time Garrosh comes in, you have a knockback for one, you cycle that, the next time you have your Unstoppable. There's almost no cycle that you can really get into that without some added dive behind it. Urel's still available here if they do want to go into that. But that's the thing with Garrosh. Then post 16, that giant killer that Sergeant Hammer has, Garrosh does not like that at all.
It's a difficult time. There's the Urel, and it's going to be a Li Ming with the Chromie banned out. One of the other responses that you can see towards the Sergeant Hammer. Not the... I mean, Raynor, I guess, has enough to be able to set things up for the preparation, but no gap closer, hard crowd control warrior remaining, other than debatably the Diablo or the Garrosh, as we've talked about, but Garrosh doesn't have the gap closer, so that's
outside shot of a Nubarak. I don't really like a Nubarak in this situation.
Yeah.
Sergeant Hammer. Ooh. That's not what I... Who the... Okay,
it's
who
banned.
Yeah, but this is... Oh, man.
All right. So, I don't even know where to begin. Do we start talking about what Vikings do for anybody who's maybe not seen them since they are almost never played? Basic strategy that the Lost Vikings promote is they're very good side soakers, and they have the opportunity to side soak while you can 4-man deathball at a specific point in time. A character like Sergeant Hammer is a hero that is able to apply early game siege pressure as early as level 1. I talked about her and his Sylve. Are those always those characters you look at for early game macro pressure? As we said, Sylve is not very good, but remember how that would...
I like how you casually throw that in mid-sentence.
Okay.
Let's reel it back here.
Okay, Sylve is not currently within the meta and maybe has some trade-offs, but when you have Lost Vikings on your team, you want to get as much siege pressure as fast as possible and demand response there while they're losing side soak in the other lanes, while Olaf, Balog, and Eric do their best to kind of scuttle around and get experience.
I'm curious about the Stukov pickup here over something like a Malfurion, just due to the fact that sustain and consistent heals, if we see the cooldown reduction, maybe the Triumvirate at level 4, maybe even Seeker at level 7 to deal with that poke against Sergeant Hammer. Normally it's like, all right, good luck. One is good. Maybe you get a second round of abilities in, but then after that, it doesn't matter.
I very much agree with you. It is a curious choice.
It is, but now, and you give that long timer of like, you can't kill me fast enough, my Vikings are going to do something in the other lane. The Stukov pick will be interesting to see how it plays out. But I will say this, is that Lost Vikings, their biggest detriment is having a Vikings killer. You take away one of those Vikings, things look different. But there's not a real Vikings killer on this team, unless you are committing that Anubarak to die.
And in fact, it's Glau over moving towards the Vikings. That is a bit of a throwback for my brain, my goodness.
Yeah, that's what confused me as I see Hammer and Genji, and I'm like, well, that's normally Fan and Ven. The Finn combo. But I'm like, well, where does Glaurung fit in this? Is Glaurung on the Genji at this point? And come to find out, he's actually the Lost Vikings.
I thought it might be the Genji swap over. Glaurung used to play a lot of Vikings. He actually even played Vikings depending on the time frame for my roster when I was playing. And it's going to be curious to see how this unfolds. The biggest thing that we see is a full Viking split and lane pressure for LFM towards the top half, so Tempo might want to find a way to be able to stop that a little bit, or they're going to counter siege through an opposite side of the battleground. Johanna's transition towards top shows that they're concerned they're going to match this, and then it's whether or not the Vikings can get extra experience. Another thing to highlight, J-How, when looking at Lost Vikings, is they function in a more problematic version of Abathur. They're those heroes getting the double soak at all points in time without risking the positioning like Abathur would have to make that happen. And so with that in mind, they love stalling out objectives. Like, the longer they can make that happen, and Tempo Storm likely will be relying on how they can get those advantages over control point A, which I think even more so caters to that argument you were making with the Stukov versus the Malfurion, because normally that long sustained healing, that's what you'd aim for, whereas Stukov is a bit more offensive.
Yeah, sustain post level 4, especially if you go cooldown reduction on your pathogen, that's kind of one of the best ways because you get mana back and you get cooldown reduction as long as it passes to 3 targets. So you do have that, but the healing baseline of that is not the sustain numbers that you see from other supports. It's normally, can I minor sustain as Swabs comes in, he's trying to just bully this, With the Vikings on the other side, it does make it more difficult to necessarily deal with the invade. So I like LFM's approach right out of the gate.
Yeah, this is exactly what LFM needs to be making happen, because the early game pressure of a Vikings composition has essentially just down a man. The Vikings are completely out of the fight. They are not going to rotate and skirmish, and even if they do, they don't have the best team fighting capabilities in the earlier stages. So LFM should be abusing the early game advantages that they have as a composition, and now that Tempo Storm is feigning interest towards this invade, ideally should try and stall this out a little bit longer. Cattle ends up dropping the blind. Burrow charge is there from Fury with the impale as well. Swaps, hammers back June into a bad spot there on that Stukov, and Droplets gives out the pepper and gets first blood here for LFM.
It's a good start for LFM, Dreadnought. And we do not get the cooldown reduction plus the mana retention. It is still more into that physical armor at level 4 for Stukov. So the talent choices speak opposite of what I anticipated with the Lost Vikings comp. And the entire time I'm sitting here thinking about it, I remember there was a Tempo roster before all the heroes that could really kill Lost Vikings. There was a Tempo roster, it was after you left, but before this new roster of Tempo Storm, that there was like a Vikings player, and every time they went to Towers of Doom, like, they were unstoppable. I can't remember who that was, though.
Yeah.
Hopefully somebody can remember that.
Yeah, hopefully.
It was at a time where I think it was right around when Cattle was even, for a short term, even playing tank for Cloud9. It was at the end of Cloud9's existence.
The two players that played it at that point in time were KO and Goku. KO started with it, and Goku moved over to it later. But talking about this skirmish, I believe, right? That or Arthlon did it for a little bit, but
I hope somebody out there can hit me with this knowledge. But right now, they're getting hit with a lot. There's going to be the dive in the back, the instant follow-up. Biggie making sure that he is hitting the mark.
Wait.
And Fury is there. Fan trying to trade out, but Whitemane comes in with some healing. But Biggie has been on point this game. Fury's been very aggressive. Without the Lost Vikings, though, Dreadnought, the Nubrak might not make it out of some of these skirmishes. I just don't think there's enough damage to go around. The Vikings generally tend to get into the fights more towards the later part of the game, especially around level 10 when you have potential play it again.
But this is the biggest point for Tempo Storm, this stage of the game that they have for them. They want to stall out in overtime. They want to delay as long as they can, and Vikings are going to get split pressure on top with the top mercenary camp. Blind goes out, buy the time, and then wait for LFM to have to respond to the Vikings. When that happens, they're going to pick up the rest of the control point. It's just delay, delay, delay. But the impale, the knockback, Vin, the focus is there. June unable to heal him up, and that is now a major setback here for Tempo Storm, at least for a while here. 14 seconds till he's going to be back. Still pressure up towards top and bottom. And even in the downtime, you see the usage there of that level 1 from Glarong to pick up that turret camp.
The credit and recognition there, because we saw Sergeant Hammer use that armor and the Unstoppable to deal with that full Li Ming combo that's coming in, which, by the way, did not go Seeker. So it ate that damage, and Fury's like, well, here's an Impale. Swab's instantly recognized, ends up going in to get the stun, and he was the main initiator in that. So I like the responses here by LFM, recognizing their moments to get into these early fights.
They are doing a very good job of understanding the early game weaknesses, but I will raise that I wonder, they've had moments, but they've also had moments where I feel like the Tempo Storm's getting a little bit more than they would like, especially with the rotation up towards top while percentage is being gained by Vikings. Normally what you want to do in those situations is you force the objective as fast as possible and worry about the kills later. The kills are not only less predictable, but they're also gain you less in most cases, especially when looking at an early protector. So when you approach Vikings, you usually go with what you know you can get rather than what you think you can, even more so than a normal game, purely based on the fact that if you end up chasing those Vikings and then you fail, you just go, wow, this trade-off is miles back.
We get back into the action as those Vikings, Dreadnought, have helped amass a full level lead despite the kills being in favor of LFM. So if they're going to take this, if they don't win this Protector, they will be set back potentially miles due to the fact that that Protector, with the threat of 10, will get not just one Fort Dread, but potentially 2.
Yeah, and this is exactly what Tempo Storm wants so far here. Flanking turret there from Eric, set down by Glarong. Great job there. Going to demand more resources from LFM, who have achieved 99%. Huge weighted postal there out from June. Vin doing his best, trying to get the damage as Cattle moves up here. 99%, as we said, for both teams. Overtime reset is Fan. Cyber Agility's over. Impale comes out. Cattle moves up for a moment. Blind dropped in. It looks like that should be the final attempt here for Tempo Storm. LFM pick up the first objective of the game, J-How, but experience may make it difficult.
Yeah, they're going to need a lot to get back into this. They'll get some out of the front wall. Fan's got to be careful as he taking a decent chunk of damage. Bio kill switch will be activated. Of course, we do have the cooldown reduction on that with the level 7 pickup, so will help at least in some of the healing department, but that's a dead Viking.
Yeah, Galarong probably distracted with one of the other 2 Vikings, I feel like, there for a moment, but it's the...
Just a little.
Just a little bit. As the rotations come out here from LFM. So one thing I also want to point out, when dealing with Vikings, you need to be able to gain a lot out of these kind of objectives over this time frame, because we saw what stalling out can kind of make happen over the first. Matching of Vikings into the experience in the late stages usually doesn't help you out too much. You want to be forcing the time frame at which the game is coming to an end and open up win conditions faster than a normal comp. So getting a fort here, in my opinion, would be a must-have for LFM with this objective. The sad part was, without the 10s, you can't really force that siege, and so TLDR here is that Vikings and the rest of Tempo Storm walk away after that first objective saying, we got what we probably wanted.
One thing that I'm super curious in how this is going to play out is that Anubarak is holding Cocoon, and I look at Cocoon targets. Dragon Blade was picked up, so that comes to mind. But then I think, who's popping that Cocoon? Sergeant Hammer auto attack slow, Johanna auto attack slow, Stukov super slow. And it really is going to be interesting to see who the priority target is. Is Dragon Blade just to kind of bait that out? Is it a matter of, okay, well, we can deal with one, but we don't need the other? I think that's a big advantage for LFM.
It's a good point you bring up. Only lurking arm, and there's no napalm. Cocoon's used there. It's going to be on to Johanna. Focus. Not going to be committed really onto anybody else there for LFM. And so that is one of those moments where LFM can't take that trade and pop a Cocoon for the objective. It doesn't hurt them when it comes to overall impact right now, but when looking at, again, as this game moves on, how problematic Vikings are going to be. As a person playing against the Vikings, you should be looking for those early game advantages, enforcing, and just stealing the camp through a Cocoon trade. For me, I look at that and I go, you know, that's not the level of dominance you need to have at this stage. And with 13 creeping up for Tempo, they're on a very, very short timer, short fuse here.
The Vikings, took a peek at it, have twice as much XP soaked as anybody in the game already. It was about 15, 16K and climbing. The next closest is Urel with 7.6. That is what Vikings can potentially do, especially when we look up kill department. Definitely in favor of LFM, and they might be trying to add to that. There's going to be the stuns. The Cocoon is out, but that's onto a Viking. Missing the mark there. June able to stay alive. Does get that bio kill switch.
And he survives. Olaf, the victor. I thought for sure that was going to at least be a dead Viking.
Almost feels like you got to justify the Cocoon at that point.
Something. My goodness, he walked out with the fattest, happiest little belly I've seen. Just belly button bouncing everywhere.
That's what I look like on the weekend, by the way. Or excuse me, during the week, my work weekend.
Yeah, that's what I spent my time trying to go to the gym to avoid looking like. You know, I was trying to become that Baylog, not that old.
Wait. You're trying to tell me you lost weight?
I tried.
I would have never noticed. Swab's going in, trying to get the knockback. There's going to be the stun. Charge just missing there as we see Chimera trying to keep the lockdown as well. Glaurung able to walk away on Olaf. He's going to be just fine there. The lead amassing further and further here for Tempo Storm. LFM, though, Dread, should have an opportunity to get back to 13 during this next control point phase, but it comes to at the same cost of the first control point of you're so far behind that you cannot afford to give up the objective. It's almost you have to take it.
And this is one of the few battlegrounds that Vikings can capture the objective just as fast as an average character. As you see Eric, posting up there with Urel on the top half. And also keep in mind that Vikings are getting more soaked throughout mid, which LFM is not achieving. So even if Tempo keep the 4-1 split, as long as they can stall top a little bit later and get this pressure down here, they're gaining more experience through mid. They're gaining more structurally on the bottom half. They will achieve the 16 window and then be able to defend over the objective pretty effectively. So there's a lot to be done here for LFM.
Oh man, June just set up that monster play with that level 13, getting the root. The cleanse came in, but there was no way for him to get out of there. I'm not sure if cooldowns were there, if Fury thought he could survive during that, but
oh my goodness.
June just set that up and they blasted him.
I actually didn't realize that was a level 4 pickup for Glaurung. This is a pretty clever approach
just
here.
Dancing around?
Yeah, so he's taking Eric and then using the heal on Eric whenever Eric has the swift mobility, and then he's healing and then just stalling. That is the most pesky little Eric you've ever seen. Oh my goodness. You just want to, and then you're like, wait a minute, Baylog's over here, and now Eric's like, yo, have you seen me? Yo, oh man. Can somebody help Swabs? I feel bad.
Well, here comes Hyperion. There's a support play made by Chimera, getting a root of his own, so there's a turnaround kill. They've got Johan in the cocoon. See if Iron Skin is available. It is for now. No root follow-up here. There's going to be the stun. No cleanse available here. There's another play. Dark Chimera gets the root, but out comes the Dragon Blade. That's going to be enough for kill number 1. Fan trying to see if he can get another. Chimera walking away, getting the heals up. There's the Swift Strike. That's going to be kill number 2. The BFG comes through, tries to get another snipe, but Fan helped turn that play around after the opening aggression from LFM.
And as we visit the northern lane, Glorong still doing his best here. Oh, he dodges the hammer. He stalls, he jukes, he heals. That was actually clutch. Play again? You can't stop this guy.
I'm not even going to say it. I'm just going to watch.
It is just...
How frustrating is this?
Honestly, I'd AFK 20 minutes ago, but I respect Swap for having a greater heart and determination than a large majority, as I feel like players would have.
We're now looking at a 2+ level lead. The Vikings splitting off again. And LFM, they'll have to take a fight. Play again was used there, and the minute they see the Vikings mid-bot, they should know they have the numbers advantage, so Swabs can communicate that play again was used. So we see Swabs making use of his level 7, continuing to jump in.
Huge lurking arm there.
Yeah.
Out from June. Impale was eaten by Vin. Glorong stalling out a little bit longer. Can they get the overtime? Not going to matter there after that great job from Glorong, healing up, taking the conveyor belt out. MVP has to be Eric. Cocoon goes down, controlled, maybe going over there. Vin under pressure. Glorong goes back into the OT. Can they get it in time? There's Cattle. Stalls. Man, that was brilliant play from Tempo.
Well, here comes the return damage. LFM forcing them off. They'll get a protector potentially here as Cattle continuing to walk on here. The Vikings, they're loading up in the bottom. You can see those pings. Cattle has to be careful as we see Fury. He's going to go ahead and burrow charge out. They do get the protector. Dread, I can't help but point this out. The same way that they had the protector in number 1, they were down a level and a half. Now they're down 2.5 levels.
And that is why I was trying to bring to light getting structures early in this comp. Even if you're dead even, it's kind of like Sky Temple when you play against Vikings, no matter the battleground. If they go 1-to-1 in structures and everything, as long as you're even in experience, that is great for you. Because then when you know you can win the late game objective, knowing that they have a weaker team fight, that is when you go, we get a keep while Baylog is just soaking mid. I don't care anymore. I'm gaining more than you. But as it currently stands on the battleground, LFM has really only been able to pick up forts. And that is now, we're at 13 minutes into this battleground. Tempo will round the 20 talents here surely before control point C, and surely miles ahead of that of LFM, even with this bottom fort going to be in their control. So that is a lot of the reasoning that had to be a focus in the early game, and why when Tempo responded to the early siege on the top half, I felt like LFM should have just immediately rotated out and focused something down.
LFM, a lot of work to do still. They work their way through, trying to snipe whatever is left here. Only 15 seconds left on the protector. They'll have to be careful. Not a lot of health either, and Whitemane is one of those heroes in that. So the longer they stick around, the more vulnerable they could be. They do have heroics though, just in case. June unable to get the lockdown outside of that.
One thing I want to bring up too, now that we have hit the 16 mark, at the next team fight, Tempo will probably actually address a team fight for the first time in this game, now that their experience lead is big enough. Watch out for Olaf with the large and charge stun. It's going to be a follow-up to the Cattle stun, and when it comes through, it should be the kill target all in. Here he goes, Olaf charging up.
Ardent Defender used just in time as the BFG came through. There's going to be the knockback. Fury has to be careful, and Glaurung and team are in the back. See if they turn their attention, but the heals come in. They're from Dark Chimera. They've got to be careful as that turret is there. Swab's not yet using that healing pulse, and Whitemane somehow with enough heals to stay alive.
Keeps the team alive there. Dark Chimera. Dragon Blade actually dropped by Glaurung there, and they end up getting the kill onto Urel.
Cattle walks over, picks up that healing pulse, and says, thanks, I'll use this now.
Yeah. Easy setup there for them, and with the 20 talents here kind of closing in, Glaurung doing his best to get the side soak. Vikings always split up. The 4-man death ball continues here.
Rotation just a little late there if they wanted to get that engage. Unable to do so, and Tempo Storm Dread, they are sitting right at 20. Fury has to decide on whether he wants in or out. He goes ahead and leaves Droplets in his trail and says, good luck. Droplets able to make it out, but almost a 3-level lead here for Tempo Storm. Things are very grim for LFM to get back into this game.
The silver lining for LFM, if you're going to recover at this stage, you know control point C is going to be a 20-less advantage kind of fight. You're not going to have the 20. Tempo will have the full 20 into it, so you need to catch them off somewhere where you can. They don't expect a team fight. The siege over bottom is not that area. I would typically let the keep probably go down and then expect for the later siege, unless somebody maybe oversteps too far.
Vin did go the auto attack upgrade. There's a root there on the fan. No follow-up there. Nice unstoppable. Iron Skin used right as the cocoon came out. That is a 20-second cooldown for a 60-second cooldown. Very well played by Cattle.
And that pretty much removes all that initiation attempt, Jay. How the next opener for LFM, even if they somehow commit to it, now is without that major crowd control. Vin is the only target low enough to maybe create any kind of problem at this point in time. And I also want to raise a bigger problem that we haven't brought up yet, and that's the level 20 choice for Vikings. This is a talent we don't see too often. Very few heroes even have the option. It's Fury of the Storm. Hold up. LFM's going to unleash a Fury of the Storm here on bottom lane.
Oh, June's in trouble. Nice dive there. There's going to be blow-up number 1. BFG used in return. Here comes White Mane healing, though. Dragon Blade is out. He's going to go ahead and Swift Strike through, see if he can get anybody. Does get one kill there. Fan looking for another. There's 3. There's 4. Fan, give me some more. That is a 5-man team wipe, all done by Fan, dropping down another Dragon Blade, dropping down a spray, and letting everybody know who he is one more time.
I don't have words. That was disgusting. He just looked at LFM and was like, nah, I got this.
I felt bad for watching.
Yeah, no, I looked away. I stopped looking at the screen once that started happening. You were just counting. I was like, yeah, it looks good. Fan and the Vikings here of Tempo Storm unleash havoc over LFM. And after that beautiful bottom initiation, 5-man team wipe. And with that, it looks like Tempo Storm will be able to move on, take Volskaya Foundry, and shut out LFM here 3-0.
I can't even imagine how many poggers just went up in chat. My goodness.
I mean, there's no question about it. I don't feel like I have to say it. We got to see that again. Like, that was...
Oh, don't worry. Well, they're already in my ear. We got a replay for you guys. We can. I don't even know if we need to say anything. Just enjoy this, Dread.
Yeah.
What? Just give me your just.
Well, the first initiation. This is beautiful by LFM, right? It doesn't start yet. It's once Fan realizes we're going to lose this game right here at this point in time if we struggle. He just brings out the Dragon Blade and just watch.
It all starts with 1. That Swift Strike through. My goodness. He went the Dragon becomes me, so he has no problem staying in here.
It's literally Swift Strike in, Dragon Blade back. Swift Strike in, Dragon Blade back. Swift Strike in, there's no more enemies.
Holy cow.
Put it on the highlight reel. Because that boy, flexing, who also is flexing, the 3 little Vikings there at the top of your screen. Appreciate that number on the far right corner. That is experience earned. And 40,000 is the number for Glarong. Next high is 13.
It was a very rare game. You know, look, LFM, I'm like, oh, they got a kill, and that's on June. This looks like they might be able to turn it around, at least momentarily. And then it was over. And I am still speechless, because that was... We saw a Dragon Arrow into a 5-man Sunder from Endemic earlier.
And Fan one-upped it.
And Fan's like, nah, I got this. Like, hold my Deckard Cain potion, you know? Like, that was wild.
I so want to see that as like a subreddit now, you know, hold my potion. My goodness. It was great there. I will say it feels like the Vikings was a little bit of tempo being confident against LFM going 2 games. And, you know, it's definitely a viable strategy. Volskaya Foundry is surely a battleground that very much promotes the Vikings playstyle. Clean play. You know, I didn't see as many Olaf flanks as I expected. The only one time we got the team fight, it was on a Figgy who wasn't the kill target. But other than that, just brilliant play out from tempo. And at this point, it's crazy, the level of play, I feel like, that we ended up getting there, especially from Fan at those last moments. It's one of those rare moments in Heroes where you truly see an individual player just change a whole game, right? And it's not one of those, hey, you have to understand the context of this moment. You just watch him just body everything. It's not, you know, well, if you understand the gap closing here, well, this is it was just like, nah, dude, you just demolished him.
Well, We don't have Fan, but we've got somebody who likes to smash faces as well. We got Caterpillar joining us, and we know, look, your Murden is starting to be regarded as one of the best. You can put your team on your back, but Caterpillar, take me through that last team fight and what it sounds like in comms there on Volskaya.
I don't know. It was honestly pretty calm. We were kind of scared after June got basically one shot. We were just saying, okay, back away, get away from White Main, just because their ult was going, and then I called that we can turn maybe once I blessed, and then Fan had D-Blade, and then we just kind of wiped them, and then Glass said, what happened? I didn't see it. Because he was farming minions or something.
Well, we saw at the end of that game, he had 40K experience at the end of that. The Viking strategy comes in for you guys. It's something we haven't seen from you yet. Is this something that it's more just, hey, look, it's a Volskaya thing? It's maybe, hey, we've got a chance to try this against LFM? Or is this, you've got all of a sudden these new strategies that may be kind of under the wraps for now and just come out as needed?
This one was definitely like a Glau pick me Vikings moment. I was like, I'm down, but I'm not super convinced. But I'm down for it if you feel confident. And yeah, it wasn't the cleanest Vikings, or it was a good Vikings execution, just not the cleanest Vikings comp execution, but good enough.
Well, we saw you guys suffer defeat at the hands of Team Freedom, who also suffered defeat against Endemic. And you come back today. Was there a point to be made? Did you guys feel that this was a rebound game, that you had to make a statement that you're still the Tempo Storm that we know? Like, how important was today after yesterday's defeat?
I think we're just in it right now for the practice. We just, like, all we care about is looking towards BlizzCon, whether or not we, or whatever playoff seeding, or if we somehow still get first seed, that's just what we're looking towards. We just want to make sure that we're as practiced as we can be. And yeah, on that note, every series still matters to us because we want to prove to ourselves how far we can come as a team. But I don't think we were, like, extra pressured off that unfortunate loss.
Well, you made a statement today. Congrats on the victory. I'm going to give you the dread.
Kettle, I've got some pretty straightforward questions to you guys after that dominant performance, and they come down to, number one, how do you get the level of efficiency that it comes out with the Murden? Not obviously hitting the Stormbolt really matters, but when it comes to what you make happen within the laning phase, it seems like your stacking capabilities on him is unrivaled, especially when looking at North America. What's the secret sauce, I guess, here to the Murden level play?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know either. Like, he's just such a dominant hero. I just feel like he has so much flexibility as a hero. It's just impossible to, like, make mistakes as him until, like, the really, really late game when teams have scaled enough, and you just kind of run around and do whatever you want. And I guess as long as I'm doing the right thing, it works. If I'm doing the wrong thing, then I mean, it doesn't really matter because you're still Murden, just walking around. You're just a walking ward. So as long as you see one hero walk by, it's like, I did my job.
Yeah. Well, you're very much doing your job there, Cattle, for the squad. And then last question, something we have talked about a lot with you guys, your Dragonshire performance. You were one of the first teams kind of bringing that to a battleground in North America. It seems like that very much is home turf and the dominance that you kind of have there. We were posing a little bit earlier, you know, whether or not people should maybe even consider it banning against you guys. Do you think that would be worth a resource for maybe the opponents, or even if they do, you got more in the bags?
I'm guessing the one Braxis game we played has paid off enough. People hate Braxis even more than I do, apparently, and they're just unwilling to play it. Like, I don't want to play Braxis ever, but when fan says, okay, let's pick it, whatever, we'll do it. But apparently everyone else is still just against it, so we'll just keep playing Dragonshire.
So just keep running it, man. I appreciate it, and great level play here coming up from you guys today.
Thanks.
Kind of, we heard last weekend, obviously you guys, you know, you tried a different approach. Wasn't necessarily the right approach for the Tempo Storm that you guys traditionally play towards. Does it feel like you guys are still making improvements, getting Vin in? I mean, at what point do we say that, hey, we get the Tempo Storm that we used to have, we get it with, you know, Vin in our roster? Does it seem like the drafts and things of that are coming to fruition finally?
Yeah, I think so. I think the improvements have been there, and they are there, and there's still room to improve. I think right now what we have to lock down is the consistency, because we don't feel like we were outplayed necessarily too hard yesterday. We outplayed ourselves. We had the games under control, and we just made mistakes, and we just need to make sure to build that consistency. And then once we have that down, then we're good to go.
Well, let's talk about consistent, because it's Octalis' next weekend, and they are consistently inconsistent with their drafts. When you look towards a team like that, now that you've seen them in the part 2, I mean, how do you go in? It's kind of been the number one question for a lot of us here, is how do you prepare for a team that just does whatever they feel is good? And is your meta, do you just feel that your meta stacks up? What is your approach to that style?
Ban out the most consistent cheese and then play whatever drafts we feel like playing. Just, yeah, get rid of the cheese is the strat.
Well, fair enough. We'll see how that unfolds next week. But you got your victory today. Congrats, Cattle, and the floor is yours for shoutouts.
As always, shoutouts to Tempo Storm, shoutouts to Twitch chat, shoutouts to my friendly herd, and shoutouts to all of our sponsors, Red Bull, Twitch, NVIDIA, Overwolf, and Kick-Ass Beef Jerky. Thanks for all the support. Keep cheering us on and watch us as we become more consistent.
All right, Cattle, enjoy the rest of your weekend, man.
You too.
Dread, we had a